Welcome to Conversations with Craig, presented by Matinee Heroes.
Hey everyone, welcome to Conversations with Craig. This is the podcast where we dive into entertainment, pop culture, and the incredible people behind the stories we love. I'm your host, Craig Price, and I'm glad you're here. Before we get started, a quick shout out to Matinee Heroes, the podcast that celebrates heroic cinema, classic films, and the impact they have on us. If you love movies and great conversations, check out Matinee Heroes wherever you get your podcasts. This month, I wanted to revisit one of my favorite interactions. From 2018 at the San Francisco Comic-Con, I got to talk to the voice of the animated Batman, Kevin Conroy. He's got some great stories for you with one of my all-time favorites about living with Christopher Reeve and Robin Williams at Juilliard when he was just a teenager. I was in San Francisco and I idolized Robin Williams. I couldn't not ask him about the comic legend. On a sad note, Kevin is also the first guest I've moderated for to pass away. And he was such a really sweet-natured guy who honestly and truly just loved being the voice of Batman. And I think you can hear that in today's conversation. So grab a seat, put on your cowl, and prepare to listen to the one and true Batman, Kevin Conroy, have a conversation with Craig. So, when you were a kid, who was your hero? And whether real or fictional, who was someone you looked up to, someone you wanted to be when you were a kid?
I had an odd childhood, very strange. I lived in my fantasy. I had a lot of fantasy friends. And I just had a weird childhood. I wasn't into comic books. We weren't allowed comic books. It was a very conservative Catholic family. I went to Catholic schools. The nuns used to really, so I didn't have any exposure to a lot of this pop culture. And that's why when I went into the audition, I was meeting Bruce Timm and Andrea Romano, and I didn't know who any of these people were. I didn't know that Batman had never been an animated show, which Bruce Timm couldn't believe. And he said, well, what do you know about it? I said, well, the only thing I know is the Adam West show. And he said, no. He said, erase your brain. We don't want to go there. We love Adam, but that's not what we're doing. He said, this is noir. This is dark. This is 40s New York. This is very gritty, very real. He's lost his parents as a child, and it scars him for life. And he spends his life avenging their deaths, trying to cure the world of its ills. And it's two personalities, and he lives in the shadows. And I said, well, you're describing, an archetypal hero, like a Hamlet character or an Orestes, because I studied at Juilliard. My background was theater, classical theater. And so I was putting it in terms of what I knew. And he said, well, no one's made that comparison before. So go with it. So the wonderful thing about being in a recording studio is it's almost like a womb. I find it a very liberating space because I feel very free I don't feel, it's like a no judgment zone. I feel very free to just explore. And as they were explaining the character to me, I just let my imagination go to a place that, I just in my head went to this place, and this voice started coming out of me. And they went, you got it. We've seen over 500 people, and you got it. And they hired me on the spot. And it was the first animated character I ever auditioned for. Isn't that crazy? I mean, that's crazy. That just doesn't happen. It does not happen that way. But I think it's because, oddly, everything I'd been doing up to that point led to that. All of that theater training, all of that classical work, think about it. Batman is a classical character. There's nothing, what should I say, frivolous about him. You know what I mean? He's got such substance. And the stories, they're like Greek dramas, Even some of the characters' names, Cersei, they drew on mythology for a lot of the characters for these shows. And the storylines were very adult. A lot of people don't realize the show, when it was first done in 91, that's when we started recording them, and they went on the air in 92. they were on prime time on Fox. It was a prime time show. So not only were the writers who are passionate about Batman not interested in condescending to the audience, but also the studio and the network didn't want them to condescend to the audience. It was never seen as a kid show, although it would be kid-friendly. It had to have a very wide audience demographic because they wanted to do really, prime-time adult storylines, which they did. And they spent twice as much per half hour as had been previously spent on animation. So there was a full symphony score, that's Shirley Walker's score, which is so beautiful. Beautiful. And they hired wonderful writers. All the writers were really high quality. And they had big casts. I mean, Mark Hamill, Roddy McDowell. It was just amazing, the people they got on there. Every week, Ephraim Zimbalist Jr., people would come in that, were kind of legendary in the town. And it got to be a kind of a show that everyone wanted to do. Once word got out that it was so much fun, Andrea Romano said, I have no trouble booking anyone I want. I mentioned that we have a role for someone, they're like, I'll be there tomorrow, because word got out. Also, uniquely, I don't know, for those of you, many of you may know this, but many of you may not. In animation, you do the voice first. The actor's step is first in the process. A lot of people think that we dub the artwork, but it's the other way around. The artwork is painted to our recordings. So the actor's the first step, and to inhabit those characters, especially when you're creating a new show that hasn't been on the air yet and no one has seen and you haven't seen, you're just going on descriptions from the writers. So just to describe this, you're in a room together, you're all acting together, and it's like doing a radio play. And Warner Brothers insists on getting the actors together, which is great. Disney and a lot of the other studios, they like separate recordings because it makes their post-production much easier to have separate, clean tracks. But they don't get the same kind of performances as you get with all the actors in the room. Actors together, there's an organic quality to what happens. What you do affects what I do, and what I do affects what you do. If you're acting well, if you're really open to the other people, it completely changes the way you're going to be in that situation. You can say, I love you 100 different ways, depending on what the other person's giving you. So when the other actors are there, it really influences what you're doing. And when the other actor is Mark Hamill, think about it. He gives me so much. He makes me so much better, So that we're the first step in that process, especially at Warner Brothers. And then those recordings are sent off to the artists, and 6 months later, we see what they painted. And then there's a step called ADR, which is where they sync up the visuals with the audio, because they've always painted in some extra mouth flaps or some extra fight scenes that we didn't anticipate, and so they need new, grunts and groans, and occasionally a line will be changed. So that ADR session in 1991, 6 months after we were into recordings, was the first time any of us had seen any footage. We'd been recording for 6 months just out of our imaginations. So this is what I was starting to tell you when I started this long discussion. Because that process is like that, when you're starting a new show, you're only going on what the writers have described to you the characters are like. You don't have any visuals yet. So the actors you hire are really important. You need actors who know how to create characters, who know how to create something almost out of thin air that will inspire the artists. And that's where Andrea Romano comes in. She's such a wonderful casting agent because she started out studying acting in college at SUNY, New York. And so she loves actors. She has a great appreciation for what actors go through. She knows what the process is like. And so she loves to work with actors. And so I was just a long way of telling you that the process of creating these shows was so organic with this group of actors. And when we first saw the footage, everyone in that ADR session was just blown out of their chairs. We had no idea it was going to be that graphic, that dramatic, that beautiful. That whoosh came up with the first scene and these brilliant colors and these strong graphics. My mouth was hanging open. I thought, I had no idea this is what I was doing.
Well, on that with the actors, you did go to Juilliard, and you went to Juilliard at a time that there was more myth. A lot of that myth, the shine has come off now that we know the process. But you were there with like John Houseman, I believe.
I was the last class that John Houseman was in charge of there. A man named Alan Schneider took over, but I was group 6, so it was very early. Robin Williams was in my class, Kelsey Grammer. It was a real group 6 is kind of a legendary class. A wonderful actress named Frances Conroy, who was in 6 Feet Under. She played the mother in that. A lot of Harriet Harris, who's won Tonys on Broadway. It was one of those every now and then a group comes together and you don't know why. It's like the stars align. We were all 17, 18. We didn't know, I was just this geeky kid, I didn't know what was going to happen. They were just an extraordinary group of people put together.
Now we're in the Bay Area. Robin Williams was my personal hero.
Oh, sure, he's from here, yeah.
So is there one thing you can describe about a 17, 18-year-old Robin Williams that we don't know about?
Well, actually, I shouldn't have.
Older?
I shouldn't have said that about Robin because he was older. I was 17.
He was probably 22, maybe.
He was, exactly. That's exactly right. I left home early. My family kind of dissolved when I was in high school, so I got a scholarship to go to Juilliard. I moved to New York, and I started supporting myself. And I've been supporting myself since I was 17 with acting or with scholarships.
Pay attention, millennials. Pay attention. You can do.
So it can be done. It can be done. Well, let me put it this way. It could be done in the 70s. I'm not sure it could be done now. Certainly not in New York. My first apartment in New York was $100 a month.
Where was it?
It was on 79th Street between Columbus and Amsterdam. And I would shop in the neighborhood bodega. I mean, that was totally a Spanish neighborhood at the time. And I'd use my high school Spanish, leche, por favor.
That's the one thing you pick up living in New York is
little high school Spanish. But now, of course, it's all, $1 million condos. But Robin was actually 22 when he entered because he'd already been through college, and he was more mature. There's a world of difference between 22 and 17. He was a very worldly 22, too. He knew what he was going to do. He was an amazing, amazing guy. We had this apartment on West 76th Street, which was a floor-through of a brownstone. A floor-through of a brownstone for $400 a month.
Wow.
And we divided the main parlor room into 3 bedrooms, so we were each paying $133 a month. But we couldn't, because there were like these 18-foot ceilings, those old New York townhouses, we couldn't put the walls all the way to the ceiling. So we had the walls go up like 8 feet, which gave us privacy visually. You get where I'm going? Robin, it was like there was a tribe next door. In the middle of the night, my sister came down from Boston once. She's quite a bit older. She was already out of college and, having a life. And she came down to see me in some shows at Juilliard. And she was sharing my bedroom with me. And in the middle of the night, she goes, Kevin, wake up. I said, what? She said, listen. And we hear, Mommy. Mommy. I want some water. Mary, tell those kids to go to sleep. Now, John, be kinder to the children. Mommy, I want some water. I said, go back to bed. Oh, darling, don't scream at the children. Oh, John. She'd say, what is going on over there? Where did those people come from? I said, go back to sleep. It's just Robin. She said, no, listen, there's a family over there. I said, no, it's Robin. She said, what? I said, this happens all the time. It's his mind. He's creating scenarios. And then you'll hear, oh, very, very, very good, very good. Would you like some coffee? Coffee? Then the accents would come out. She'd say, this is a fucking madhouse. That's what living with Robin was like. Oh. I mean, the character voice is coming in, but he was creating all those characters that you all got to know 20 years later or 10 years later, because the thing about Robin, he looked all loosey-goosey, and that it was all like spontaneous, something he made up in that moment. What was so brilliant about him was his mind was like a computer. All of those characters were developed minutely over years and programmed in. And that's why he could go from A to B to C to D to F to G to Z and just have these whole conversations going on with all these characters that was just overwhelming because he had it all cataloged in the computer. He was a brilliant guy. And I don't think people give enough credit to the technique that he had. I mean, he studied mime in Paris. I mean, he was a great mime before he started doing comedy. There was a wonderful moment at I was a waiter at a restaurant on Columbus Avenue. That's how I made money, and I worked in the kitchen. Yeah, let's hear it for waiters. But Robin was doing mime on the steps of the Metropolitan Museum of Art. Across the park, directly across the park from us. And he'd come home after Sundays with just like money, bills just crammed down. But then he'd spend it, by Tuesday it was all gone. He couldn't hold on to money. So one weekend he comes back, one Sunday, and he goes, I'm going to kill that guy. I had a horrible day. I couldn't make anything. I said, Robin, what happened? He said, this other mime. He said, I'm moving in on his territory, and he wouldn't let me work on the steps. I said, well, what did he do? He said he kept pushing me off the steps, so I kept pushing him off the steps. I said, wait a minute, this was a war between mimes? I said, oh, can I come next weekend? This would be so incredible. I said, do you scream or is it all silent, Isn't that a great image? Mimes having a fight over the steps, like...
It's a virtual minefield.
It's a virtual minefield.
I had to go with it.
Ba-dum-bum.
Well, you can tell a lot by a person by how they talk about other people, so thank you very much for that. My questions are done. You fulfilled exactly what I wanted, so thank you for that.
Great.
So let's move on to the audience, and we've got a very cute first questionnaire.
Who's your favorite villain?
Well, that's like asking a parent who's their favorite child. We don't go there. But I can honestly say that's Mark Hamill, Joker. Joker is to Batman what Batman is to Joker. We're almost the yin and the yang of each other. We're like the opposites of each other. We define each other. I really don't think Batman would be as complicated and dark if it wasn't for Joker's insanity. And I don't think Joker would be quite as insane if it wasn't for Batman's darkness weighting him down. You know what I mean? I think they really define each other. And his being such, actors are people. There are generous ones and selfish ones, kind ones and mean ones you really want to work with, you'd fight to work with, and ones you think, please, God, don't make me work with that person. I mean, they're just the people. And Mark is generous, he's kind, he's supportive. I love working with him. And I know he feels that way about me. We're so lucky, because I've worked with some real jerks.
Name 3.
No. I'm not going there.
No.
But, every actor's got a few. They're like, oh, you don't want to work with him,
Yeah, tell me off stage.
Okay. But Mark genuinely, people love to work with him because you can see in his eyes as he's watching you, he's watching you, while you're recording, he's like this, because he's loving what you're doing. And it's so wonderful to know that the other actor is supporting you that much. You know what I mean? It makes me feel freer. Huh? Oh, Betty.
So do you guys ever get in a little like I'm gonna be Batman and just kind of just to mix it up and
Absolutely, we mess around with each other all the time.
How good is because he does a great Harrison Ford? How good is his impression of you? I should say.
Oh, I don't think he does me very well at all.
Well, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Well, I'm just gonna. There we go. So, although the animated series was somewhat dark, did you have any hesitation playing Batman in The Killing Joke and going to a completely dark level?
Oh, that's a good question. That's a good question, and that really is more of a question. She was asking, was doing The Killing Joke, taking it to a darker level than we were comfortable with in doing the show, and that I think is more Bruce Timm's realm. They talked about that a lot because it is really dark. But then they realized they had to be true to the story because the amazing thing about Batman, the whole Bat universe, is you guys, the fans and the audience are so passionate that you can't mess around with them. They would know in a minute if I was phoning it in. They would know in a minute if the writers were sort of, not doing it full scale, you know what I mean? And they're very opinionated. The audience is very opinionated. So everyone knows The Killing Joke inside and out. The problem with The Killing Joke wasn't just the level of violence, which is pretty severe, but it was also the length of it. It's a very short story. And it really wasn't long enough to be a full-length film. So they had a choice. Do we pad it, put filler in, put some more scenes in there, or do we, Bruce came up with the idea of putting like a prequel on it, which is what they decided to do. A lot of the audience didn't like the prequel because it really wasn't part of the original Killing Joke, but they felt more comfortable doing that because once you start in The Killing Joke, it's pure. And it's a roller coaster ride. And they decided to do it that way. But doing that prequel, there was a lot of love. It showed the love of Batman for Miss Gordon. And I think it made it more human. But it also made the darkness that happened later that much more horrible. It's brutal. And that's why it was PG-13, I think, or R. It was R.
Bring it up. It was R. Yeah.
Yeah. It was. The rating was pretty rough, and they accepted that. They knew that they would, to be true to the story, they'd have to have an R rating.
I was thrilled that you and Mark got together and
Thank you. Thank
couldn't
you.
pick better people.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
So how did you first hear about the audition for Batman, and how did you get that? And then,
well, that's what was so interesting. I am a New Yorker. I'm a New York actor. I was based in the theater. I had this weird delusion that you could make a living in the theater. And in the 70s, that was not such a crazy idea. But the world changed, And I didn't realize, even when I was working all the time in the theater, I wasn't making enough money. So I thought, what is everyone doing? And I realized what everyone was doing was voiceovers or commercials during the day. And in the city, voiceovers are commercial voiceovers because that's where Madison Avenue is based. In LA, voiceovers are animation. So I got into doing commercial voiceovers in New York. I got the first one I went on, the Paco Rabanne spot. Remember the tagline, "What is remembered is up to you," for Paco Rabanne? Well, that was me. And it was, what is remembered is up to you. And those 5 words, or whatever it is, carried me for months. And I thought, this is gravy. This is great, Then I didn't get one for a year. I didn't realize, when you get the first one, you think, oh, this is going to be so easy. But then you don't get another one for a year. So I had established a voiceover gig, sort of, with this commercial agency. And when I was in L.A., doing a guest on a TV show. They said, "Oh, you're in LA. Why don't you go over to Warner Brothers? They're doing a new show, Batman." And I said, "New show? That's been around forever. I used to watch it when I was a kid." He said, "No, it's never been an animated show. Just, give it a shot." And so it was a total shot in the dark. And it just happened to be perfect for me.
And then what's the difference between, say, like theater and television acting and voice acting, at least for you?
Well, yeah, that's a good question. The difference between... Let me put it this way. In television, the writers are in charge. It's a writer's genre. They become the producers. They run the shows. They usually cast the shows. But, think of all the big successful shows. They're produced by writers. In film, it's a director's genre. The director is in charge. It's a director's art form, and they mold the actors to do what they want them to do. In theater, it's the actors that are in charge. It's an actor's genre. You are creating live art on the stage each night. You've got the words of the playwright. You've been choreographed by the director. But each night, it's a live art form. The second you have that moment, it's gone. It only lives in that moment. And it only lives between you and the audience. And that's why stage actors love the stage and thrive on the stage. And they don't always translate to film. A lot of really wonderful stage actors don't work well on film, but a lot of really great film actors don't work well on stage because they need a director, they need a cameraman, they need all that stuff to help them, mold the performance. So the difference between acting on stage is actually the shows we do are the closest to stage acting that I've done in LA because they're done like radio plays. So you really do interact with the other actors the way you would on stage. There's an intimacy to it. There's an immediacy to it. In film, you're going from take to take to take to take to take. You never even see. You don't know what it's going to look like until it's all edited. It's a different beast. Now, the other side of the coin on that is games. Gaming is mind-crushing to record because you're trying to maintain the character, maintain the situation, and doing line after line after line after line after line after line after line. Okay, could you do it with a little irony? Line after line. Keep the irony. Now we want to smile. Line after line. And you're alone in a booth. You have to be alone because they need completely clean takes, depending on how the game is played, the way the algorithms in the computer. It all has to be completely separate. So you're working in a vacuum, creating this world, keeping the character voice alive, and keeping the emotion alive for 4 hours at a time. And then you get an hour break for lunch, and then they do another 4 hours. And it's all you. And it's over and over and over. Now a little smile, over and over. Oh, keep the smile. We want a dagger, over and over. And by the end of the week, you don't know how to speak English. You're like, I'm not kidding. And you think, this is not why I went to Juilliard. I am not a machine.
All of a sudden, you're John Merrick.
Yeah, exactly. I am a man. But on stage, it's you and the character and the audience. It's you in charge. And that's largely what the recording of the shows are like. So everyone always says, what's the difference between gaming and recording the shows? And I say, well, it's the difference between heaven and hell, basically. I mean, it's like they're no way related. It's so hard to record games. Arkham Knight, the third part of the trilogy, which I love and I'm really proud of the performance in, took 2 years to build. And there are 157,000 lines of dialogue in it. Think about it. It's like recording War and Peace. I mean, literally, depending on how the game's played, every possible variation of everything, there's a recording for. So it just took forever. And then when I saw it, though, they brought me in for ADR, and I was watching the post-production. I thought, wow. That's my voice in there doing that, But it was like root canal doing it, though.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And I do like the video game ones. I know they're very difficult for you, but I feel like they're Batman because you're a detective. And I think,
it is the great detective.
And I think a lot of the Batman iterations, they forget that he's the world's greatest detective, and he's not just some rich guy with gadgets.
And also think of the Arkham concept, which I love so much. Batman never kills anybody. Part of his existence is respecting life. So he catches these crazy villains, and he puts them in Arkham Asylum. And these writers came up with this great idea. Wait a minute. Every crazy, bat nuts villain in the world is in this one building.
No pun intended.
Yeah, right. What if Batman got lost in there, got trapped in there, and had to fight his way out? And I thought, what an incredible idea for a game. And that was the genesis of the whole Arkham series.
Hello, Kevin. How are you today?
Hey, how you doing?
I have like a quick one and a question. I know you've said in your history that you've loved in the animated series Penance of Dream. In that episode.
Perchance to Dream, yeah.
Yes. The question is that you played Thomas Wayne in that episode, if I remember correctly.
Tom, which?
Thomas Wayne.
Yes.
If ever a line or a history, if you ever got to do that again, it's voiceover as Thomas Wayne in the future, or I'll just say as a hypothetical that if you ever got to play Thomas Wayne, if you ever decided to stop doing Batman, just hypothetical wise.
Are you casting?
No.
Do we have your agent's line?
Yeah, really.
But would you ever do Thomas Wayne?
Of course. I love acting. I love playing different characters. I love the chance to do it. Even if, occasionally you hit one that you're really good at. And I think Batman for me was one that it was kind of I got the brass ring, But you do some that you're really terrible at too, but it's just fun to give it a shot. So of course.
I really loved the Thomas Wayne voice actually.
Thank you.
I really loved it. But my second one is, and I know this has probably been asked 100 times already, but can you sing Am I Blue?
Am I blue? Am I blue? Are these tears in these eyes telling you? No. Sorry.
Thank you so much, Kevin. You rock.
Thank you.
So we're going to let that one go, but try to keep it to one question, please, because there's a long line behind everybody, and we want to make sure we get to everybody. So what's your one question?
My one question is, throughout all comics and animated series, there have been multiple Robins, and I was wondering which Robin do you think is most fit to take the Batman mantle?
Well, I like this question.
And why is it
because
Dick
it's not
Grayson?
Which is your favorite child? There we go again. Well, Lorne Lester. I mean, I love working with Lorne Lester. He's a great Robin. Is that what you mean? He became Nightwing. So he was great. He was great at Nightwing. And he's a wonderful actor. And it's weird. In 27 years, his voice has not aged. It's bizarre. He still sounds like he's 15.
Yeah, and that's true, because I watched The Mask of the Phantasm like last week, and Mark Hamill is not the Joker that we know now. You are somewhat similar. You've gotten a little gravelier, but I call that distinguished.
Oh, thank you.
But it's interesting to watch the evolution of a character. Have you noticed things that you've purposely decided to change as you've moved forward?
That's a funny thing. People ask me, how has he evolved over time? And I go back to what I said earlier about the audience being so passionate. The trick for me has been to keep him consistent for 27 years. And I think my theater background was great training for that. I'm good at doing a show 8 times a week. I know that each time the audience sees that moment, it's the first time that audience has seen that moment. And they've each paid $100 for that seat, and they deserve to see it. It's just as fresh as the person who saw it a month ago. You know what I mean? It's got to be just as alive for that person. And that's a trick you learn in the theater, is, reliving moments. And my key into Batman to keep him consistent over all this time has been that moment of his childhood, that moment of the murder of his parents. That, to me, is where the voice comes from. And that, to me, is where his identity my kind of, everyone gets a key into a role that kind of unlocks it for them. And for me, the key into Batman was that, wait a minute, Batman's not the performance. Bruce Wayne is the performance. Batman is that bruised, broken heart, that damaged heart. That's why you relate to him so much, because everyone has a dark night of the soul. Everyone has had their heart broken. No one gets out of here alive, Everyone, life is hard. And he's like the embodiment of that bruise. That's what made him. That's why he's so naked. And if you go to that voice and you make that voice the essence of who he is, then it doesn't sound like you're putting on a weird voice. It sounds like you're coming from someplace deep and dark and painful. But then when you become Bruce Wayne, that's when you're putting on the suit and going to work and putting on a face for the world. So that's the way I approached the character, and it really worked for me. It kept both voices, I think, very, very real.
Thank you.
Sure. There was a time I was her only one, but now I'm the sad and lonely one. Lonely am I blue?
Well, now we've got to do Batman the musical. We've got to get that funded.
Hamming it up here, hamming it up.
Fantastic.
Hi. You were talking earlier about being at Juilliard, and I had heard in another interview that you were at Juilliard at the same time that Christopher Reeves was. And I was curious whether you and him ever got to really interact and talk at all, or if you were just in like completely different circles at the time.
Christopher was there at the same time. I was in Group 1, and I'm in Group 6. I was in my first year, and I was, as I say, 17. I was actually the youngest person in the school at that time. And because I left high school early, because as I said, my family kind of dissolved. So I moved out of the house when I was 16, moved in with friends to finish high school, and I graduated 6 months early because I was desperate to get out of that town. And I got into New York. So I was very, very young to be at Juilliard. And Chris, like Robin, had college. I think Chris went to Princeton, I knew he was from Princeton. I think he did some time at Princeton. And he was in the third year, with Robin, actually. Robin started out as a third-year student. He was brought in as an advanced student. Robin decided, smartly, to go back to the first year because that's where all the training happened. The third and fourth years were just performance years. Robin wanted the training, so he came back to our class, which is how I, a 17-year-old, ended up living with a 22-year-old, because it was odd. But Chris was in that third year, so I didn't have any interaction with him, except at one point I needed to get a new place to live. Just before I moved in, I ended up living with Robin. Before I knew I was going to live with Robin, Chris put out the word that he needed a roommate for this floor-through of a loft in Soho. So I thought, oh, please, God, let this work out. I want to live in Soho so bad. Because this is in the 70s in Soho. It was fun. It was gritty. It was, the artists were all there. It was before it got chic. And there were all these big lofts being developed down there. And Chris was getting one of these things. But it was $400 a month, $200 each, and I couldn't swing it. So I couldn't do it. But then I ended up with Robin Williams. So, it was crazy when you think about it. You know who else was there at the time? Mandy Patinkin.
Oh, man.
Christine Ebersol. Christine Baranski.
Oh, she's fantastic.
They were upper classes, but it was all these amazing people. One of the first days I was there, I'm in the elevator, and this short, muscular guy in tights and tousled hair comes running into the elevator, and everyone gets real quiet. And the elevator doors open, and he runs out, and someone goes, "Oh, that was Nureyev." It was Rudolf Nureyev. Was, rehearsing at the time there. I mean, it was such an amazing place to be, and I was kind of too young to realize it. I was just treading water as fast as I could, but I was really surrounded by amazingly talented people.
Well, I think it's prophetic that you were in school with Superman and
a lot of people have made that anatomy, that observation that Superman, Mork, and Batman were all in the same world.
Yeah, but you particularly were with Superman, but you actually lived with Robin.
Yeah, I know.
Like Batman does. We won't get it.
Oh, Batman and Robin.
Yeah. There's even more. I'm going.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Hi.
Hello. What was your favorite movie that you voice acted in, and what was your favorite Arkham game to voice?
My favorite movie is Mask of the Phantasm, which I think everybody knows. It's because, like I was saying earlier, my whole sort of link into the character is that tragedy of his childhood. Anything that gets into that about the character, for me, is just great. It's just why I love to play the role so much. He's so complicated. He's a guy with so many issues. He's very screwed up. But that's wonderful to play. It gives you so much to bite into, as an actor. So think about Mask of the Phantasm. He goes back to his childhood. You get the whole introduction to the whole Batman legacy. And then he makes the discovery that what life is really about is love. He falls in love with Andrea Beaumont. And suddenly he realizes it's not about avenging his parents' death. It's not about curing the world. It's about love. It's about sharing your life with someone else. He suddenly realizes, oh, that's what life is about. I've got to get out of this vow I've made. So he goes to his parents' tomb. And there's a beautiful scene where he's pleading with the spirit of his parents to release him from his sacred vow. And he breaks down, and he's begging them to release him. And what he's really doing is begging himself for permission to be let go. And he can't. And just at that moment, this shriek of bats, this flock of bats comes screaming out of the earth and up out of a cavern, and it blacks out the sky, and it's like it's his fate pulling him back down, and he knows it. There's so much about that movie I think is so beautiful. So that's why I love that movie. What was the other question? My favorite game?
Yeah, your favorite.
My favorite game, and I'm not sure you'd agree with this, but from an acting perspective, the one I'm most proud of is the very end of Arkham Knight. I mean, that was very hard to record, and very hard to really live. I don't want to give anything away for anybody, but Batman goes to a very dark place, and it was a real challenge doing it. And I really was proud of how it worked out. So that's my favorite.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Nice to meet you, sir. It's finally an honor to finally meet you.
Hi.
Yes, and my question is, Bruce Timm is interested in making a Justice League and Avengers crossover based on the 1990s comics.
Really?
If he decides to put it in action, would you be interested in?
I would love to.
Is there an Avenger you'd like to be? If they said, "Oh, we don't want you as Batman, we want you to try something new."
No, I want to do Batman.
All right. Second.
Batman's so cool. The thing is, people always ask me why I'm not in all the different shows. And that's really when a director just decides, it's not because I've turned it down. It's because they didn't ask me. And it's usually because the director just wants to try something new. It's like the live-action Batman movies when they have all the different kinds of actors doing it. I at first thought that was a really crazy idea, that they didn't give the franchise to one person. But then when I saw how differently each actor played it, I thought, this is kind of brilliant, because you're seeing such different takes on these characters. I mean, Mark Hamill is the Joker to me, but then Heath Ledger was brilliant as the Joker. He wasn't better, but he was just different, crazy different. And the same with a lot of the Batmen. The people have their favorites, but I think they've all been really brilliant in their own way, which is fun. So I would love to do all the Batman voicing, but occasionally a director just says, I want to try Bruno Romano. I want to try, someone else. I want to try Dietrich Bader. Dietrich's a really good friend of mine. I love him. They just give it another shot. They want to hear what someone else does with it. So I hope I get asked to do that, but I haven't been yet.
So too.
Thank you.
Well, just to let you guys know, we got about 5 more minutes, so we're going to do kind of rapid fire. So real quick questions if you can, so we can try to get everybody. I don't think we're going to, but we'll try.
Okay, I'll try to be fast.
All right, so you said you weren't allowed to read comics as a kid, but I was just wondering if you do now, and if you do you have a favorite Batman writer?
I've tried to come up to speed. Who's great at this is Mark Hamill. Mark is a comic book maven. He has the most unbelievable collection of comics, comic art, comic knowledge. He's like a savant, about comics and about everything related to them. He can tell you episode, edition, writer, artist. It's unbelievable. He's one of those people. And he's kind of brought me up to speed with a lot of this stuff. And he got me into Killing Joke, which I had never read before. And then Hush.
That's another one.
Whoa. Which would be really cool. So that's one I'm really hoping that they would do is Hush.
Hush as animated?
Yeah.
That'd be great.
Wouldn't that be cool?
Did you see any of the metal stuff that happened? That was my last thing.
Okay. No, I haven't.
Damn.
Sorry.
Okay, sorry.
That'd be great.
Hello, Kevin.
Hi.
I'm Eamon from the autograph table yesterday.
Yeah, hi. How are you, Eamon?
It's great to see you again, and thanks again for the autograph and the photo.
Sure.
And when we last spoke, you said yes to my question whether you heard that Batman and Catwoman are actually getting married in the comics next month. But what I forgot to ask, what are your thoughts on that wedding actually happening?
I said I heard about it.
Yeah.
I don't know anything about it.
What is your opinion about it?
It's weird because it sort of resolves a tension. And I think that usually tension is more interesting, don't you? And you wonder, what are they going to do once it's resolved? Going to have fights over who does the dishes? I mean...
I think they'll fight crimes together on the streets, hopefully.
I guess they do. They could fight crimes together.
Yeah. It's like sitcoms. Once they finally get together, it's like, they only got a season left. So
yeah.
Next, thank you very much.
Thank you, Eamon.
Again, we're going to get through these. We got a couple more minutes.
Hello, Kevin. Good to see you again.
Good to see you.
At what point within the last 27 years that you've been doing the Batman, did you realize that you've made it, or you finally got it right? Not like you haven't had it right the whole time, but at what point did you have a realization, this is it, I've got it?
Well, the moment I realized it had become a hit, and that we had a show on our hands, a big hit, I've had, probably some of you have heard this story. I was on my way to the studio. It was like 5 in the morning. It was still dark out, 4 in the morning. I had to mail my bills. So I stopped off at the Hollywood post office just to drop some bills in the post office box. And it's dark. And I pull into the parking lot, and I'm running across, and there's this pile of blankets in the corner. And I suddenly hear, "Hey, buddy, you got $1?" And I thought, oh, my God, there's someone under there. And this hand comes out, and I said, all I have are my mail. I don't have anything. He goes, "Oh, my God, you're Kevin Conroy." And I'm thinking, did he read my mail? It's the first thing I thought. Could he read? And I thought, it's still dark out. How can he? And I'm alone. You know how spooky it is? to be alone in an empty parking lot in the dark at 4 a.m, and a guy goes, "You're Kevin Conroy." I said, "Yeah." He said, "You're Batman." I said, "How do you know that?" He said, "Everybody knows who's Batman." I said, "No, they don't." I said, "I don't even know who I am." "How do you know who I am?" He said, "Oh man, this is so cool." He said, "No, there's a Circuit City down on Hollywood Boulevard, and they have all the TVs to the window, and I watch your show every day. Oh, this is so cool." He said, "Oh man, you got to do it. You got to do it. You know what I want you to do? I am vengeance." And I thought, oh no, God. It's pitch black. There is not a soul in sight. I'm in the middle of a parking lot, and I go, "I am vengeance." He goes, "Come on, here we go. I am the night." I go, "I am the night." He goes, bring it home, Batman." I said, "I am Batman." Over here. And then we hear from the distance, the window, we hear, "Shut up, Batman."
Well, I can't think of a better way to end this panel. Thank you very much. Give it up for Kevin Conroy, the one and true Batman.
Thank you.
Thanks for listening to Conversations with Craig. If you had a great time, be sure to subscribe and leave a review. It really helps the show grow. Share this episode with friends you'd think would love it too. For updates, behind-the-scenes fun, and more, follow Matinee Heroes on social media. Take care, and I'll see you next time.